Sorry it's taken me so long to make part 2 of this video. I was busy growing out my hair. Nothing else has changed about my life. I totally did not move. I designed over 500 trading cards. And so I'm gonna go through the rest of them. I don't know what to say.
Kyle, and flip over another one.
Kind of a quick overview of all of the cards.
We'll get it all synced up. So, last video I went ahead and talked about the first iteration of my card game, All Hail the Goblin King, and essentially how I started making the game. The initial concept of the game, the initial art of the game, whether good or not, and just generally how I actually went from knowing nothing about making a card game to actually having a tangible product. Up to the point of launching my first Kickstarter, which did fail, and I agree that was all for the best because, well, after that I completely redesigned my game. I had an iPad, I could actually draw real art as opposed to fake art, I guess you want to call it that. It's not AI, it's just worse. Top of that, I learned a lot about balancing card games, just general design, layouts of card games, as well as generally what is fun to play. Okay, so the core concept of my game was simply goblins, collect trash, build gifts, There's also spells. Now I'm going to go through these kind of like before in two parts, chronologically of when they were made as well as the type of card that exists. The easiest one to go through would be the trash. It's also the least exciting in my opinion, so I'm going to pass on that and talk about the core central element of the game, the goblins. Good thing this board isn't reflective at all because I would hate for you to see that I have a light in my room. Now it's moody. Main iteration of the game, I had 180 cards in total, including duplicates. One of the main things I learned from my Kickstarter, and I'll talk a little bit about it here and there as the video continues, was simply I was trying to raise $15,000, which is way too much money, and I've learned a lot of ways to have it cheaper. The first main things I realized was to simply cut down the card count, to remove 56 cards to 124 total cards, which a lot of these cards were duplicates, but I did have to cut some goblins. There were 12 different types of goblins in the game, one for each of the 12 types of trash. But they also didn't have any sort of special ability. They didn't really have much going for them. Now I'm going to try to remember the original 12 first. All right, Jacob, are you ready? You're going to have 60 seconds to see if you can name all 12 goblins from the original All Hail the Goblin King. Now, no pressure. You did only spend 3 years on this game. Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I got this. 60 seconds on the clock. Let's all wish him a little bit of luck. All right, everybody. There was business, bum, cowboy, chef, art goblin, revolutionary goblin, executioner goblin. Okay, that's seven. We had pirate goblin. No pressure. I can think it's okay. 7 seconds. Hipster Goblin, and how did I decide which goblins exactly to cut? There were two different kind of thought process with this. One, the more smart thought process was simply that there were some goblins that were not child friendly. The Executioner Goblin was simply morbid. I don't know if that's the word, just not good. Also the Hipster Goblin, although not inherently bad, the starting trash it came with was wax, and it had this in his hand. Now, as for the other ones, they were simply just the unfortunate few that I had redesigned the Business Chef and Sleepy Goblin, and then just went ahead and recycled other designs I had that I liked. On top of that is I wanted to make sure to include more feminine-esque goblins, you know, for the girls out there, ladies. Unfortunately, before, my game did not pass the Bechdel test. Simply that some of them were balding in ways that men typically bald, and like mustaches and stuff. But technically, none of them have genders. Yes, Mr. Trashy? Can we talk about trash now? Of course we can talk about trash now. I hope my dog drinking water next to me isn't going to cause any audio issues. It's my favorite thing. What do you mean it's your favorite thing? Why would you say that? Audio issues are your favorite thing? Unbelievable. I don't want to talk to you anymore, Mr. Trashy. That's right, everybody. It's time to talk trash. Anybody else think Brittany just kind of sucks? I'm not taking her to prom. So, the next step was to redesign the main resources of my game. There were 12. It kind of sucked. Now, there were a few differing issues that I ran into from the first iteration of the game. Sometimes people would call my string the B-O-W-B word. Nope, B-O-M-B word. They would call it bow, which that's not what it was, and that'd be a weird, that's not good trash to find, if it is. If it's in your garbage, don't build anything out of it, okay? Just good old-fashioned adjacent advice. Woo! And on top of that is that sometimes people would call the macaroni a box, because it's macaroni in a box. So the main issue that I was running into was just the visual literacy of it all, is what I'll call it, because I have a degree in English and I need to use it. Please let me use it. Come on, guys, please. So I started with 1, making sure that each trash had a very distinctive color, and 2, make sure that each trash have a distinctive shape. I want these to act as essentially symbols that each player kind of has as, you know, they're going to be in every part of the game. I need to use them. I need to make sure that they look good, that they make sense, and that they're trash. All right, I got to make sure that they're trash. I didn't really change any of the trash types themselves. The only major change I made is that originally Broken Bottle was a glass bottle, and I changed it to a plastic bottle that isn't broken. It's just a bottle. And the reason I did this is because I have a friend who teaches children, and she had a copy of my old game, and these kids specifically are, they come from different upbringings than what is typically the norm, and she was worried that a glass bottle would trigger some of these kids. And so I made it less dangerous, less of something that would teach kids to like play with it, and more of something that would just let kids. But you know, it's a plastic bottle. It's fine, okay? And then the other minor change I made is that damp rag just became sweaty sock. I think it was a little funnier. I think it's kind of gross. It's a lot of gross, I guess. And it has more visual literacy than just rag. I want people to look at the thing and recognize what it is. Call me crazy. Call me an absolute insane artist. Dad! Santa came! Santa came!
Santa came, Dad. Quick. Dad.
What are you up? He left us gifts, Dad, wake up!
Son, it's the middle of July. That's not a Christmas tree. Why did he leave this here? It has my name on it. Son? I'm sorry, Dad, but I'm not real. You were too busy redrawing your card game every 6 months to ever have kids. None of this happened. You left that bottle under that shelf. You thought it would be a funny joke. You bought the one with your name on it because it had your name on it, Dad. The joke wasn't even that funny.
Looks like the only thing under the Christmas shelf is Jacob. Hey, buddy. I know, I'm being weird, and you don't understand it. In the original game, there were 20 gifts that I had that essentially were what the players were trying to get in regards to points. Okay. So, let's not put your butt in the frame. Oh, another one. And so, in the original game, there were 12 trash and there were 20 gifts, with each trash being used a total of 5 times. There were a few overlapping recipes, which was something I fixed later on. One issue I recognized pretty immediately was that there was a certain slowness to the game that sometimes caused a pause. So one thing I did was I have now one pointer gifts and 2 pointer gifts, still a total of 20 gifts, but this allows gifts to be built more smoothly, and if your goblin special ability relies on a gift being built, it feels more balanced. This also allowed me to act a little bit more creatively, I suppose, because a lot of the time when I had 3 trash per gift, it would end up with me putting 2 of the same trash along with 1 more. And honestly, that was a little bit more difficult for the game. So this allowed me to, if something only needs, dirt and a rock, then it only needs dirt and a rock. I don't need to put dirt, rock, or dirt, rock. You get it. You know how 2 things work. So it kind of was just the smart move all around. There's nothing else really to say about gifts. There's different things I plan on adding in the future to help spice up the game, but for now, here's the only other thing I'll talk about here in a second. Curses. They changed to be something different, which I'll talk about shortly, but these essentially were something that changed the recipe. You flip a gift on it, and it adds a little bit more spice to the game. So, like this one is, once you build the gift, you discard all your other trash and spells. But overall, that's it. last final part of the main game, and that is spells. I'm going to talk more about these in a few minutes, but I'm just going to go over the basic change I made as well as what they look like. Originally, there were 8-ish spells in the game. Rat's been one of the main kind of staples of the game, and although obviously it's still going to be in the game, I changed the design. I made it representative of a different goblin, which in this case is the business goblin, as well as Wizard stayed in the game this whole time. Donkey's been in the game this whole time. Little Bear's been in the game this whole time. It actually looks like a bear now, which is nice. Crow's been in the game this whole time. Visionary's been in it most of the time. I pretty much used the same background as I did with the previous card. I just updated this version of it, this design. But the two kind of main changes I made for it was simply that the items that previously were just a banana peel and a scale, I made both creatures. And that's been a trend I've continued with all spells, is that all spells will be creatures. One, because it allows me to draw more than just goblins, but also because there's already trash and gifts in the game, and I want to keep all the item-based, like tangible physical objects between those two types of cards, and then have all the creatures be between these two types of cards, essentially. Instead of banana peel, one of my favorite designs is the gelatin cube or jelly cube. It still allows you to skip one player's next turn. And then the last one is the fox, which before it was scales, which allows you to trade one of your cards with somebody else's while also getting to look at their hand. I made it the fox because I already had this design. I drew it for my girlfriend because I'm a simp, and I just made it a card because I liked it. That's the brief rundown. We're going to talk about how I remade all of this all over again. Sorry it's taken me so long to make this video. I was busy shortening my hair. I designed over 500 trading cards. That's right, I did it twice. I remade my entire game, and then I did it again. But this time, I didn't do as much work. So, simply put, I realized that some of the actual graphics of the card was not what I wanted, and so I ended up redesigning a lot of the just basic cards. And I'm going to be showing you a montage of the side by side. I don't know if it's a montage because I'll be talking over it. So I redesigned the 124 cards in this version of the game. Between version 1 and version 2, I also decided to look into other manufacturers. Before, I was planning on using BoardGamesMaker.com, which simply put is not, I don't personally think it's an ideal thing to use for mass production. I think as samples, it's nice. It's where I've gotten my samples from. They're very limited. Customer service there isn't like as involved for me wanting to give, $10,000 to possibly. So I shopped around. I found a few, and I haven't landed on one, so I'm not going to name any names at this moment. I don't think any that I found are necessarily bad or good. I'm still looking. One side effect of this was simply that they only priced in multiples of 54. So my current game being 124 cards would have been the same price of it being 162 cards. I thought it would be best to add another 38 more cards to the game as opposed to cutting it down to 108, because for whatever reason I found that an impossible task. And I didn't want to just add more multiples of the trash, because I learned that the game was a lot faster and just generally ran smoother for 2 to 4 players if it only had 4 of each trash. And so I started adding a few new cards. I went back and added 4 more goblins. I added new spells as well as variations of already existing spells, because as you can see, none of the Trashnor spells so far really had any sort of variation. And then I added some new types of cards. The ones I added were play on the curses, which I talked about at the end of the last chapter. I called them totems. And then I also added ways to build more spells by allowing you to craft new types of gifts that gave you a new treat card, which is what allows you to build spells in the game. The 4 new goblins, like I mentioned, I added the new variations of the rat specifically, but then this also allowed me to change the ability ever so slightly so that they were a little different. So that was it. That's what the final version of the main game before the second launch of my Kickstarter was. So the next step is to talk about the expansion packs. Yeah.
And I'd like to announce our brand new expansion for 2024, Imaginary End. Now this
outcomes like this. The new cards have some pretty crazy abilities that are not balanced. Like replacing someone's knife with your own is a huge swing. Especially
This is an expansion to original Monopoly. All the rules are the same, except for these changes. First for those rules, check out this game. Remove the chance and community chest decks. Attach the free parking game suite.
especially if not great. Like, can you imagine someone playing this deserter card on you, then making you lose your only knight, and then the invader's attack?
With that said, let's jump into the video. Number 3, barking parties.
So, we'll get back to you, Cities and Knights story, but now let's get on to the next one. Traders and
Exploding
barbarians.
Kids expansion packs from worst to best, complete with a numbered scorecard. This list omits all base game editions, such as Zombie Kittens.
Okay, so expansion packs. The goal with any expansion pack is to obviously add new cards and new ways to play and just general new content to whatever the pre-existing game is. That's like the main selling point of it. Originally, I didn't really do that. Instead, I just added new goblins that did nothing, new trash that just kind of clogged up the game, new spells that did something slightly different, and then of course, new gifts, which just slowed the game down even further. So the goal with these two, staying trashy and getting classy, was one, to add new content to pre-existing ways the game is already played, as well as adding new ways to play the game altogether, or just adding new content to spice it up. Now, these are the most work in progress parts of the video, so I'm mainly just going to be showing you the cards and talking about my goal with both of these. There are obviously new goblins, and to keep the symmetry alive, I did 4 goblins for each game. And because now goblins have special abilities, the goblins kind of warrant existing other than just colorful little characters to have for no reason. Of course, I added new trash to, although I add new resources, I'm also trying to add new ways to actually beat the game or play the game, or just more moves to make on your turn. There's also spells. Now with spells, before I really focused mainly on just adding new variations. I didn't really add anything that actually made the game more exciting. So instead, the goal with Classy is to add elevated versions of already existing spells, like the Donkey allows you to flip over 1 gift, but the Half Elf allows you to flip over as many as you want. Or Rat steals 1 card, Big Rat steals multiple. While the cards over here are supposed to add completely new ways to ruin your friendships. And then of course there's gifts. While one is focused on just adding more gifts, you know, more 1 and 2 pointer gifts, that way there's a little bit more spice to it, I guess. The other one is all about adding higher pointer gifts, as well as just new ways to win the game. Now, of course, I had to add variations to pre-existing cards, which is not something I really did a lot in the main game, mainly because originally it felt kind of lazy just recoloring pre-existing designs with no real game plan. But here I did fresh new designs for both trash and spells. Okay, let's quickly run through the updated expansion pack, which was called the Classy and Trashy version. I, again, don't know what I'm doing with this yet. Most likely would be 2. We'll find out together. So, of course, there were still all 8 of the goblins from the 2 expansion packs, although I did change it a little bit, as well as add a new Froglin, and updated the abilities and the starting trash for each, just to keep it a little bit more balanced. Gifts themselves didn't really change too much. I did not include the 3-pointer gifts in this just because I feel like there's still a little bit more work to be done. I had a lot of complaints that if you had 2 or 3 of them clogging up the pot in the middle, then you would just kind of be stuck because it's really hard to get 4 correct trash, even if they are worth more points. And I added the new types of gifts that allow you to build more spells using the new resources. So of course I added those. I added new totems. For the trash, I still added the 2 new resources, the can and apple, but then of course focused on having new looks for each of these as well. There was something I was gonna do with the tags here at the bottom. I don't think I'm going to keep it like that. I think it's fine just to have sometimes the resources look a little bit different, you know, and a lot of these are just brand new art altogether, so it makes it feel a little less lazy, although there are some that are just recolorings. There's also infested trash, which I'm not really sure what I'm doing with yet. And then this is a new trash I added, which is the rubber ducky. If you collect both of these, you get a new point. I also added egg, which allows you to draw any sort of spell that is in the deck. New version of the wild card. And of course spells. A lot of them are the same spells from before, but I cut a lot of the variations that were added just because a lot of them didn't make sense. There are still a few, like the crow and rat, but that's just because they also have the new special ability at the bottom. But the rest of them are just the ones you've already seen with the new look. So that's the expansion pack, or packs. Now it's time for every other card I've ever made, but this video is already long, and I'm not going to make a third part just for those, so I'm just going to make a montage of all of those. But this includes all the promotional cards, all the other designs I did for fun, all of the test prototype cards, and just whatever else I have that I haven't really shown off. So let's do that.